mortgage history, and who is OSFI, and how does it affect your current mortgage and what is going to be implemented. Today, I'm basically just going to discuss who is OSFI and focus on mortgage history, and I'll have future videos on how this will affect you and what changes are going to be happening by the end of this year. So OSFI is mulling about new restrictions. Actually, I think it's going to happen by the end of 2023, and initiatives that are considered too late by many. So who is OSFI? It's the Office of the Superintendent for Financial Services, also known as the Federal Banking Regulator. So they're talking about new restrictions for their mandate to control and manage risk to the Canadian financial system. So back when the National Housing Act was created, the government utilized its artillery of financial agencies to provide home financing programs for the average Canadian. And before the launch of this program, this government program, which later became CMHC, which is Canada Housing and Mortgage Corporation, the most wealthy or well-connected people could access secured lending privately in this country. So the access to these programs, as well as the mortgage-backed securities and Canada mortgage bonds, they've been widely popular, making many Canadians achieve their goal of home ownership, something that most of us all aspire to. So successfully wealthy that many Canadians that participated became very comfortably wealthy by leveraging their personal properties and purchasing investment properties. There's something called the Smith maneuver, which I'll talk about in a future video. So just remember that. So similarly, the chartered banks that administered and underwrote these big loans, they benefited from unfettered growth. So near limitless growth in a protected industry with the majority of mortgage portfolios backed by the government for loan defaults, large spreads between borrowing, money from the central bank, and lending, money to the mortgagee. Little obstacles existed that could impede their success. So key highlights for mortgage restrictions, they increased significantly since the 2008 financial crisis. Something that I also want to mention is we went through that relatively unscathed because of how heavily regulated we are in Canada and because of the very conservative leadership that we had and fiscal responsibility of that current federal government, which is Stephen Harper. Personally, I never liked the way the man did politics, but I loved the way he ran the country because we came through that unscathed. That was financial subprime mortgage crisis affected the world, and Canada was literally impervious to it because of how heavily regulated we are and because of his solid leadership during that time. So back to this. OSFI's proposed restrictions will make it harder for many borrowers to qualify for prime lending. Further restrictions will make housing more unaffordable for Canadians, and restrictions will not curb the surge in housing prices once rates trend back down. So let me repeat that. Further restrictions will make housing more unaffordable for Canadians. How do you feel about that? I really want to hear it in the comments below. So let's talk about the history of mortgages in Canada because it's important. Are you a first-time home buyer? Short history of Canadian mortgages. Let me dive into this because I think you need to know. The housing market has boomed for decades. And as immigration became the leading aggregator of Canada's growth strategy, however, in 2008, we had the financial crisis, which rattled the U.S. market, really started in 2007. Again, I've made reference to that, prompting Canada's federal banking regulator to swing into action to avoid a similar potential fate north of the border. That's us, Canada. Canada's housing market fared well due to the actions taken. Exceptionally noteworthy was Canada's resilient delinquency ratio, which we are infamous for holding on to housing, desperately so, which delinquency means mortgage payments in arrears. So that same year, the regulator rescinded the 40-year amortization on mortgages. 40 years, guys. I don't know that. I don't know what it feels like to have a 40-year mortgage, but I can only imagine how great it would be, especially with how small the payment is. It had hatched a year earlier. So 2007, it brought out the 40-year mortgage and then rescinded it a year later. So since 2008, the federal banking regulator has been on the path to stabilizing Canada's housing market by introducing restrictions to the prime mortgage lending guidelines. Before the 2008 financial crisis, wait for it, this is crazy. This was the time of cheap money and easy mortgage approvals for Canadians. I'm going to give you a taste of it because it's nuts. Here it is, a list of what easy money looks like for 40-year amortizations. You could stretch your mortgage repayment by almost half a century, which means lower monthly payments on more money borrowed. Get this, wait for it. 100% financing. I can't fucking believe that. No down payment. No down payment. Like, oh my God. I can't even imagine what that would feel like. This was needed. Only the government was on the hook in case of defaults. But we're Canadians. We don't default on our mortgages. We're like the most apathetic nation in the world. We believe in real estate. We love our homes. We never leave our cities. I mean, come on, guys. So here's the next one. No stress tests. You could qualify on your contract rate, fixed or variable. No GDS limit. Your income did not limit your maximum household expenses if you had strong credit. So build up your credit and you basically got whatever you wanted and you could pay for it over 40 years. Default insured rentals only needed 5% down payment to purchase a rental. I don't know about y'all, but I've had rental properties and I had to I think if I recall correctly, I had to put 20 or 25% down because I had multiple at the same time. I purchased a commercial building. I had to put 25% down. Boom, had to come up with a whole bunch of money for that. It was crazy. So default insured refinances, equity takeouts to remortgage to 95% loan to value. Changes are coming to that one. So wait till that video because y'all ain't going to be happy about it. Cashback mortgages. Lenders could give cash back in exchange for a higher rate. Easy money, cheaper homes. Not only did you not have to stress about the stress test, which is, by the way, like 2% above what the approved rate is that you've got. Note. But you could also qualify for a mortgage or more than five times your income if you had an excellent credit, which on now ballpark you're 4 to 4.5 times, but you got to tick all these other boxes and prove that you can do it all the way through. Now, additionally, you didn't have to put down any of your own money and could also get cash back for furnishings in exchange for a more significant profit for the lender. Can you friggin' imagine that? You would pay a little bit more money and you could furnish your house. Like, what the fuck is wrong with our system now? Buying a home or a rental with cheap insured money was a no-brainer. So really, who in their right mind wouldn't buy a home if you had a regular paycheck? Like, come on, guys. Would you rather rent and pay off someone else's mortgage or pay into your own equity now? Like, for me, it's a no-brainer. I'm going to pay into my own equity. So these were also times of higher interest rates. I remember that. I remember 9%. Smaller incomes and rent control. Yep, we had rent control, so there no incentive to buy, supposedly, but I don't believe that. So I don't know what you think, but where we are now and where we were, I don't know, man. I think I'd like to go back to then because where we are now sucks. And I think it sucks that people can't afford to buy houses. And we are so restricted in Canada, punitively so, that this is where we are. So going forward, I am teaming up with mortgage agents, a company specific concierge, and I'm pretty damn impressed with what they do. But yeah, I want to hear your thoughts on the history of mortgages in Canada that were not that long ago. So where we were then, where we are now, what differences do you see in the quality of life now compared to back then? Honestly, I would fucking kill it to go back to that time. It was way better than what it is right now. Ciao for now. Love y'all. Peace out.